looks like we've got ourselves another Beanie article that I'm going to have to review here. These things do pop up pretty often, and I don't usually do videos on them. This one I couldn't really ignore. It was wrong in such a spectacular way that I had to cover this and explain exactly what's wrong with it. So if you are finding this as someone who does not usually watch my videos and is looking for this for actual Beanie info, I apologize for the length. I have no idea how long this is going to go on for, but it's going to be difficult to keep it brief. I will keep things simple here by saying this is a top 60 list, and the first 30 are all actually correct, at least to some degree. There's like a couple nitpicks I can make here and there, but otherwise they all, they all deserve to kind of be on a list like this. The next 30, completely terrible. Like, the top 30 on this list, there is not a single one on there that should be worth more than like $10. I don't know what happened to this list. It's kind of a work of art how bad it is. And the really disappointing thing about it is that it starts out so promising, and it even goes out of its way to kind of point out a few of the common failures of these lists and like actually mention some good things to look at. And then it completely disregards its own advice and falls into the usual trap of clickbait and just listing off commons and claiming that they're worth thousands for no reason. So it's like, it catches you in the first half, and then suddenly everything shifts, and if you trusted them before, you're going to trust them for the second half, and then suddenly believe all this stuff is rare, and it's not. So it's really a shame. So let's go ahead and dive into this. I don't know anything about this actual website. I do know that they have a thing that forces me to turn off my ad block, which is annoying. But anyway, as usual, we have our little intro here. It's like, hey, do you remember beanies and how they were super valuable? Oh my god, everybody went crazy over them. It's like, yeah, we all kind of know that. And so this list goes off of actual eBay sales. One thing I have to establish early on here is that whenever it comes to these types of lists, it's hard to really say, what is the most valuable, because what makes a beanie valuable? They don't have any like actual worth to them other than what people assign them, and it's mostly based off of rarity and desirability. So if the sales from something are going to vary a lot, then you're going to see a lot of differing prices. So really what it just comes down to is like, what are the average sales? And this one is looking at, like, this particular article here is looking at like sales that they found or claim to have found recently, and they ranked everything according to that. And fair enough. Like, I'm not going to sit here and complain that like number 15 should be higher on the list than number like 9 because it's actually worth more. It's like, I'm fine with a little bit of variance in that, but we'll see it starts having some issues here. And before we even talk about this first one, I want to point out this note here, because this one was actually what made me think from the beginning that this is like a really promising list. It basically is saying like, eBay can't be completely trusted. There's beanies that look like they've sold for really high, but then there's like problems with the sale. There's a lot of stuff to come into this, and I want to actually show this off as a personal example of how you can't really trust these things. So here is a new face, or actually this is new and old face. These are sales of the Magenta Teddy Beanie Baby. We have what appears to be some counterfeits mixed in as well. But I want to look at these in particular because we have sold for 61 bid, best offer accepted. This one sold for this much with 21 bids. This one was offered for $649 and it says best offer accepted. So here's the thing when you're looking at the eBay sold listings. Like when you're looking something up on eBay, you can't just type it in and look at the prices that people are asking for and take that at face value, because people put stuff up for ludicrous prices all the time. You can't trust that. But on the side, when you can sort the results, you can sort for showing only sold items. And so everything on here should have sold, but it didn't necessarily. And it didn't always necessarily sell for the price that it says. So right here, this one, I haven't looked into this one specifically, but knowing the rarity of the beanie, the fact that it got this many bids, I trust this value. I feel like this is probably pretty accurate, and honestly, with an intact tag and everything, that's not a bad price for this one. Now this one was originally offered for this much, but it says best offer accepted. So that means that somebody offered a different price and the seller took it and sold it for a lower price. Now this one says best offer accepted. You'll see how it doesn't have this cross through it. I'm pointing this one out in particular because I actually bought this one myself and I paid $80 for it. And eBay is saying, like, if you go to eBay right now and search for Beanie Baby Teddy Magenta, scroll down, you'll see this one. It says it sold for $60. However, I bought it for $80 and had to pay actually more because of shipping and tax and everything. So why is it saying $60? It's because it was offered originally as a buy it now, or no, it wasn't a buy it now. It was a bid starting at $60, and you could keep bidding and, you know, drive it upwards, or you could do best offer accepted. I did $80 because I didn't want to lose out on it and like risk other people bidding it up higher than that point. So I tried that. Seller took it. I got it for that much. And if we look at some of the details on this one, we can actually see. Okay, so yeah, if we look at this here, it says winning bid $60, and then we look at the bid, and it'll actually show in here there's my best offer of $80, even though it was saying $60 a second ago. So this is basically just to show that you can't really trust everything that's listed on eBay at face value. A lot of times when it's going to say stuff, like I pulled up Princess as an example here, they're going to have these outrageous prices, best offer accepted for like a ton of these. And a lot of times the seller is going to have a 0% feedback. Feedback is just showing, like, you know, other people have bought from them and said, like, yes, I had a good interaction with the seller, I'm going to give them an upvote. If they have 0, that means nobody has done that. So nobody is buying this for $15,000 from somebody who's never sold anything before. It didn't happen. As we go down, here's one that allegedly had 100% feedback. If we look at it, listing has ended. They have relisted the item. That means they still have it. They never sold it. And we're going to see that with a lot of these. So without going any further into that, that's just the point that I need to make. And I'm glad that they pointed it out. You know, they didn't follow their own advice. So anyway, Flutter with a yellow wing. They're saying here that this one is like a mess up, like the whole ring is yellow, whatever. Let's ignore the yellow wing for a second here. Flutter in itself is just a rare beanie anyway. Throughout this video, I'm going to be looking at the timeline that I have here. I made a simplified version of it, breaking down by the tag generations. Let's introduce this right now. You don't need to know the ins and outs of this timeline to understand it. This is just showing, you know, how the tag variations changed over time and whatnot. And the most important thing for us to pay attention to is actually right here, because this was when the very first McDonald's Teeny Beanie promotion happened, and that was what caused the collecting craze to really take off. It was already building for a while before that, but this was where it became like, you know, everybody was into these, everybody was buying them, people were hoarding them and like convinced that they were going to be worth a fortune. And because the demand was so high at this point, production went way up. And so we can basically mark at this point. I'm going to put a giant red stripe on this here. We're going to consider this the common line. There's going to be some there's exceptions, of course, but like for the most part, anything beyond this point is going to be common unless there's some kind of like special circumstances behind it. Everything before it isn't necessarily rare, but the closer to the beginning of the timeline it is, the more likely it is to be. And we'll talk about exceptions when they come up, but we want to keep this line in mind here, because we're going to see later in the list, almost everything is going to be past this line. So Flutter is going to fit into this spot from mid-1995 to mid-1996. The Generation 4 tag is generally considered to be another starting point of when beanies really started becoming common. Most things with that tag are not going to be worth much. Flutter never reached that one, so it's in a point where, you know, not the rarest of all time at the beginning, but hard to find. So, the fact that this one has a yellow wing it's not really, it's definitely not a known variant. It's just, it's a tie-dyed beanie. This one just happened to have yellow on the fabric on that one. Some people do spend more for beanies that have a particular coloration like that. You see it from time to time. This one, fine, whatever. So next on the list we have Princess, and they go out of their way here to say that, you know, it's often listed on these lists. It's not hard to find them listed for thousands, but they never actually sell for that much, and that's, I'm very glad that they pointed that out. I just wish they stuck with their word. So we have here, it says they had a lot of 4 of these. They sold for $200 to $250. I don't know if that was each. This is kind of an oversimplification of it, but, you know, this is correct. The PVC pellet ones are worth more. The Indonesian ones are worth more. For Princess specifically, at least. It's not going to be that way for every beanie. But, yeah, Princess, I've talked about this one at great length before. It released basically around this time period with some weird circumstances around its initial release, and so that's why the PVC ones are worth more, just because it was a short supply of those before it switched over. I've talked about that one a million times. I don't really need to go into it again here, but the ones that are usually considered the rarest are going to be some combination of PVC, Canadian, and Indonesian. They can hit around the $200 point, but it's rare for them to get that high. The ones that are just the common Chinese PE pellet ones usually sell for $5 to $10. It's a massively overhyped beanie, and I'm glad that this list only put it at number 59. So 58, we have first generation Goldie, and it says that there's 6 generations of tush tag. Is most valuable as the original first gen version with first gen tush tag and first gen swing tag. Here's where we get into some weirdness with this list, where if you were to ask me to make like a list of like what's the 30 most valuable beanies, I would just kind of list off, you know, a lot of the older gen exclusives, like some of the ones that changed designs early on, some of the employee exclusives, that kind of stuff. But the things that would not come to mind for me originally are, you know, just random first gens. And they would technically belong on that list. It's just not what you would first think of. Because with Goldie here, the release on this one is, it wasn't quite one of the original 9, but it came out in June of 94, and then it ran all the way up until the end of 1997. So it had a pretty long run. And during this run, it had 5 different types of hang tags. My square doesn't actually show it. It did very briefly have a Gen 5. And it had the 6 different types of tush tags, like the article said. So the Gen 1 version, which is represented by this red triangle here, basically, yeah, that is very rare. You do not see this beanie with that tag very often. Any Gen 1 beanie is rare. But because Goldie itself is common, it's not something you'd usually think of. So, is the article wrong? No. Like, I would believe that it sold for this much. I would actually believe it would sell for more than this. This is pretty cheap for a Gen 1. But you have to take the context here. You can't just say Goldie's rare. You have to say, yes, Gen 1 Goldie is rare, and that's like any Gen 1 is, so we don't care if it's Goldie specifically. Korean Coral, here's kind of another weird one. Says it was made in Korea, had a 3rd gen Korean swing tag, 1st generation Korean tush tag. From this image, I actually can't really tell very well because I'm only seeing this part of the tag, but it does look like, based off of the 1 copyright symbol, I think that this is a Gen 3 hang tag. I can't see the tush tag, so. Coral on the timeline fits in around here-ish. Sorry. So the Gen 4's usually going to be worth about 10, 20 bucks. Kind of depends on the colors. They can sometimes go a little higher. Again, with tie-dyes, people spend higher for different colors sometimes. But Gen 3's, if it's the older tush tag, if it's Korean, those are points for it. I can see them raising the price up. Don't know if I would say it's worth that much, but I could see people potentially spending that much, so fair enough. Second Gen Valentino. Once again, list is getting some good information in here. Yeah, Valentino is usually not worth very much. There's so much misinformation on this one, usually about the brown nose. You can't even really tell from this photo, but this one is a brown nose because they all are. It looks black in the photo, but trust me, it's not. But what makes this one special is the fact that it is a Gen 2. Valentino released at the very start of 1995, and it actually went all the way up until the end of 98 here. So again, had a very long run, went through many different tag generations, but the Gen 2s are very rare. Pretty much all Gen 2s, again, are rare. Valentino is just one of the ones that happens to be one of the most desirable from that generation. So if you can find one, I would actually say this price is kind of low for it. I think these have gone for over 1,000 before. There's a few variations of the Gen 2 tag. I don't know which one this one had specifically, but either way. Early tag, yes, worth a lot of money. Later tag, no. This one, it comes entirely down to the tag generation. There's no variance on the beanie itself you need to worry about. So here we have Steg. And we're not really saying a whole lot about this one in the text. So this is part of the dinosaur trio. There's this one, and then also Bronte and Rex. I think we'll be seeing Rex later on this list. They came in mid-1995 and lasted about a year. Yeah, up until the end of the Gen 3 tag. So all three of them usually worth a pretty decent amount. Bronte's the one out of the three that's worth the most typically. Gen 1 tush tag going to be worth more than a Gen 2. All that stuff. So this one, for this price, 300's a bit much, but it's not that outrageous. They can definitely go over 100 pretty regularly. Here we're getting into something that I don't really know myself. This is just one of the many Billionaire Bears. They started doing one pretty much every year, starting from 1998. So this 13th one was quite a bit later than the stuff that I'm aware of. My timeline only goes up to the end of 1999. But these were all employee exclusives. They're all numbered and signed. So, I mean, if you are a hardcore collector and you have the money to dish out for these, then they are worth that because there's just not many of them and they're in high demand. So, sure, I have no problem with this being on the list. Here we have Gray Happy, and yep, this information is correct. Pretty much everything on here is correct. So, one thing I will point out, this is a German Gen 3 hang tag. You can tell because the "To From With Love" is in italic font. The left side of the tag is also a little different. The back of it would say "Import to or Thai Deutschland." But yeah, this one's pretty simple. It's just, oh, actually, no, sorry. It came in around here and then retired partway through 95. So, pretty early beanie. It changed over to the lavender version at this point, and then that one ran up until mid-98. So, lavender one, worth something with the Gen 3 tag, but otherwise not really. This one, worth a lot. German tags are very rare, so pretty good find here. New Face Jade. Let's see what it says about this one. Yeah, this one isn't like a seasonal or a holiday version. It's just you had 6 different colors of Teddy. Each of them has an old face and a new face version. This one is not any more notable than any of the others, but I would say it still has a place on this list. For this one specifically, its run was from the start of 95 to the start of 96. The old face versions were the 6 months before that, basically. This is a Gen 2 tag, so it would basically be, we're looking at like right around here is when this one would have come out. So yeah, not much else to say about that one, really. Fine Mane Derby. I'm surprised to see this one so low on the list, honestly. And for only $350, I would have expected this one to be more. So, yeah, this explains the 4 versions of Derby. I see nothing wrong with this. Honestly, everything on here is correct. I have no problem with any of it. So, Derby as a whole, like all 4 of its versions, their release window was from mid-95 up until like mid-99. I don't actually know what month it retired in 99. It doesn't really matter too much. The Fine Mane version specifically is about, you know, that much. It had an extremely short run time before changing to the Coarse Mane. One of the rarest beanie variants out there, and like I said, $350, honestly pretty low for it. Old Face Magenta, we already talked about the different teddies earlier. Have nothing wrong with this one being on the list. This is correct though, the brown Old Face is the rarest one. The other 5 colors are not as in demand as that one, but, you know, still sell for quite a bit. And yet another teddy version. I've kind of run out of stuff to say about these. Here's another later Billionaire. Everything I said about the previous one applies to this. I don't know anything about this one specifically compared to any others, but it's a Billionaire Bear. They're usually worth quite a bit. Here's something similar to the Goldie from earlier. Let's see what it says about it. Yeah, fair enough. Let's once again look at the timeline. If I can even fit it all on here, it's going to be, you know, mid-94 up until pretty close to the end of 98. So, as with the Goldie, the Gen 1, you know, had a really short window that it was available. Very rare, worth several $100s, absolutely. Gen 2, worth a good amount. Gen 3, worth a decent amount. Anything after that, common as dirt. So, oops. Thankfully, the article is not saying that Daisy in general is rare, just the first gen is. Nana with Bongo sticker. Here's one that has shown up in one of my other videos. So, yeah, it's, again, the information here is fine. So with Nana, it was originally released as Nana. Some of them actually sold with that name on it, and then some of them had this sticker applied to them before they were sent out, where they just changed the name to Bongo and just put that on a sticker over it. So Nana's release window is pretty much about like same as Fine Mane Derby. It's like that, and then Bongo is that. Bongo went through a couple tail color changes, but that's irrelevant to this part. So yeah, Nana, extremely rare. The ones that don't have the sticker are going to be worth the most, but the ones that have it are still worth quite a lot because there's just so few of them out there. Royal Blue Peanut, once again, what is this doing? It's spot 45 on the list. And the answer is just because, you know, they sorted by the sold amounts that they found. But yeah, this is a pretty famous one, and here's where we get some pretty bad misinformation. It says, very sought-after beanie released by McDonald's. No, it wasn't. So, Royal Blue Peanut was, a lot of these are going to be starting from June of 95. It had a couple months that it was out at that point, and then it changed to the light blue version, which ran up until about here. It's not actually as rare as Fine Mane Derby, but it usually sells for more. Another one that frequently reaches about 1,000, or at least close to it. So, as for why it says it's released by McDonald's, that's just bad info, basically. The original beanie most certainly was not. As with many other beanies, they had a teeny beanie version released later, part of the McDonald's Happy Meals. This one in particular came out in 2000, and This one also had a Beanie Buddy, which are the larger stuffed animals, and that was one of the original Buddies, which actually came out at this point. But we're not talking about the Buddy or the Teeny, because neither of those are rare. Only the original Beanie Baby from this time window is rare. So, yeah, kind of wrong there, but does it deserve to be on the list? Yes. It's just, you know, could have used a little bit of a fact check. So, here we have Rex. I mentioned this one earlier with Steg. Don't really need to go into that again. It does mention that it has German tags. I can't tell that from the photo. Oh, actually, no, I can. I can just barely tell. It says, like, the import part of that right there. So, yeah, there's... Any of the Gen 3 Germans are generally worth quite a bit. Rex is already rare, so 510, you know, I would say that's a little steep, but I don't doubt that somebody would probably spend that amount on it, so fair enough. Here's a weird one. So here we have a Gen 1 Squealer. It says Korean 4-line. I'll get into that in a second here. First Gen Beanie, released in 94, retired in May 98. One of the longest running original beanies. True. Same length as Patty and Pinchers, actually. Chocolate lasted a little bit longer, though. It says on here, had a 4-line Korean tag. It doesn't explain what that means, though. And this picture doesn't show it because this is the hang tag. The 4-line Korean tag is the tush tag, basically. You can just kind of barely see in this image here. It has like 5 lines of text. 4-line tag only has 4 lines. Pretty simple. And it was only available on the original 9 and only for like the very first release. So this particular one would have been from somewhere in this window. Squealer as a whole could have been anywhere in this point. So like a lot of the other ones I said earlier, it just kind of comes down to the specific tag on what makes this one valuable. Korean 4-line Pinchers, same exact deal. So yeah, I have no issues with any of this. Summer Olympic Liberty, here's kind of an odd one to see on this list. Says, this one is rare because it has a swing tag that says, born on Summer Olympics of 96. Subsequent versions removed the Olympic reference. This is correct. We'll just take a look at the Liberty release window here. It was very beginning of the Gen 4 hang tag until the start of 97. Was out for 6 months. The Summer Olympics tag was just like the first batch of them, so probably like half a month, if that. I assume most places did not receive these. It was just like, you know, a tiny fraction of the ones released had it. And just to specify again on this, the normal tag on this, the common one, will say date of birth, summer 1996, Atlanta, Georgia, USA. The rare version says Summer Olympics 1996, Atlanta, Georgia, USA. The only difference is the word Olympics. It's a very minor detail, but it makes a big deal. Like, it makes a big difference, because the ones that have that, honestly, yeah, this is correct or slightly low almost. Like, I've seen these go higher. These vary a lot, though. There's not that many of them out in circulation, and it's one of those really minor variants that not everybody knows about. So I've seen them go up to 1,000. I've seen them sell for a lot less because people don't know what they have. But this is a very believable amount. It is one of the Gen 4s that I do not own because it's just too much money. Cranberry Teddy. This is an old face specifically. It says German and Korean tags. If you're wondering how it's both, Korea is the place of manufacture, and and Germany is the place it was sold. This is a Gen 2 hang tag, so basically the Gen 2, there's a German, there's a UK, and there's a US/Canada, so 3 different types of tags. And this one just also says made in Korea. That's pretty much it. But being German and being Korean gives it extra points. Already a rare beanie. So, yep, nothing wrong there. Here we have a weird spot. Because now we're getting into prototypes, and I don't think prototypes really belong on this list. This one, it just says Yellow New Face Teddy, one of a kind. And yeah, that's the thing. It's a prototype. There was literally only one made, or like maybe sometimes maybe like two or three. They were never sold. It was just, you know, like what else do you say? It's a prototype. It's a one of a kind thing. So the reason I say they don't belong in this list is they don't really count as normal beanies. I can definitely see them selling for a lot of money, but it's not the type of thing that you would like right here. You would never really put this on a checklist. So I don't know. It's just kind of a weird thing to include. Here we have the employee bear, which is another oddball. This is all correct. There were about 300 of them made. About half had the red ribbon, half had the green. It is exactly identical to a Teddy New Face Violet, except that one is always a green ribbon. This one can have green or red, as I said. This was just an employee gift from the holiday season of '97, so around here, but the release window doesn't actually matter. And this one never had a hang tag. It's a Gen 2 tush, no hang tag at all. It's an oddball, but it's rare and worth a lot. You have another prototype here. This one really does just kind of look like a normal pastel piece, but it's got this weird like Rax tag, which is attached to some prototypes. That's not my area of expertise. I can't say too much about those. As with the other one, I don't think it belongs on the list. Wingless Quacker. This one says, strange kind of error, isn't it? They're probably, just trying to make a little joke there, but, I mean, it's not an error. It's just, when this one was released originally, it had no wings. They added them on a bit later. Price on this one, again, it's kind of getting up there. I would say this is excessive, but not entirely unbelievable. Release window on this one, we've got pretty much same as I've said for a lot of these. We have, this is the wingless version, and this is the winged version. There's also the whole matter of Quacker versus Quackers. So this is kind of irrelevant to this point, but I'll just mention it here briefly. We have wingless, can be Quacker or Quackers. As a Gen 2, it's more common to see it as Quacker with no S. Gen 1, it's usually going to be Quackers with the S. And then for the winged version, we once again have Gen 2 can be either way. Gen 3 can be either way, with Quacker being more common for Gen 2 and Quackers being more common for Gen 3. It's kind of a mess. After the first couple months here, it was always Quackers. This was where the single Quacker ended. But again, this is nobody needs to know this info, but I figured I would point it out anyway. So, moving on. Embroidered Humphrey the Camel. This is another interesting one. So, here's the thing with these. Beanies that were sold in Canada have like a secondary tush tag, and they didn't start showing up until Gen 2. And there's a very, very small fraction of Gen 2 Canadian beanies that don't have the standard tush tag. They have an embroidered one that was taken from like a Ty plush, which is like Ty's just original stuffed animal line. It has one of those, plus the Canadian tag. And yeah, those are kind of like, almost like holy grail level, like very few of these out there. And this is on a beanie that's already pretty desirable because Humphrey had a very short release window from about there. So yeah, I got a Gen 2 with the special embroidered tush tag on a rare beanie. So yeah, gonna be worth a lot of money. Korean 5-line Brownie. Again, a lot of these I'm just kind of finding that I have not much to say about them. The text is pretty accurate. This part, though, it says it only comes with the first generation Korean hang tag. It can also be Chinese. And it can be either the 5-line or the 4-line tag, but yeah, the deal with Brownie, as it says, is it's the exact same beanie as Cubby. It was one of the original 2, which predated the original 9, and ran for about that long. But the ones that say Brownie on the tag specifically only lasted about that long. So, definitely one of the rarest ones. Here's Slither. This one's like, we don't know why this one's so expensive. And, I mean, the answer is pretty simple. It's same as Humphrey. It came out in mid-94, retired mid-95. This one has a Gen 3 hang tag, so it was one of the later ones. But that's all it needs to be. It was one of the first beanies to retire. It was considerably before people started collecting, so not many of them are out there in good condition. Like, sometimes that's all it has to be. There doesn't have to be a whole big story behind it. And that is the case with this one. Generally worth a lot of money. Now, over 1,000, I don't know about that. That's definitely pushing it. But definitely a few hundred at least. Alright, first generation Blackie. Yeah, this is another one of those ones like Valentino, where it's just the beanie itself is common, but it has a rare tag. So, let's point out the release window on it. It's about there. And this one, just if it's a Gen 1, it's worth a lot. Now, you could say this is exactly the same thing as the Goldie previously on the list, where it's like, you know, came out with a lot of different tags, just the first one's worth a lot. That is true, but first gen Blackie is actually considered like the rarest first gen, or at least one of them. I think Quacker with no S might be rare, but I don't know why it is. It's just one of those odd things where I guess maybe they produced fewer of them with this tag. Maybe there just happened to not be as many of them that survived in good condition. Hard to say, but it is definitely worth a lot with that tag. If it's a Gen 5, Gen 4, it's not going to be worth anything. First Gen Chili, kind of same story here. I almost don't even need to be showing this thing every time. It's going to be like the same chart, but here's the Chili release window. Started 96. First gen, yeah, going to be worth a lot of money. This one's like not quite as rare as Slither, but it's definitely up there. First gen UK Cubby. Here's another really odd one, and the description does not explain it well. So the very first shipment of the original 9 beanies shipped to the United Kingdom had red heart hang tags with a CE mark. That is not really true. So here's the thing. With the original 9, when they released, they came out in the US first, and when it got, I don't know why I'm looking at the chart here, when they got sent to the UK, which was not like the first batches, but it was pretty early on. We're gonna estimate like around here-ish. When they got there, there was like an issue with like basically, I don't know what you'd call it, shipping standards, where like European toys had to have the CE mark on them to prove that they met like safety standards, and the American printed tags did not have that. So they scrapped the tags and they gave them these rectangular white ones, which was a temporary measure until they started printing out triangular tags, or sorry, triangular stickers that they would put on the normal red heart tags that had the CE mark, which was also a temporary measure until they just switched to Gen 2. And it was kind of a mess. But point is, there's very, very few of these known to exist. It's estimated like maybe a couple dozen of each of the original 9, probably less. So yeah, these are worth a ton of money. And so, we've hit number 30. We're halfway through the list. We're about to get to some stupid stuff. So everything up to this point I've agreed with at least to some degree. Now I don't. So, What does it say about this one? Piccadilly, colorful jester bear. Blah, blah, blah. Came in 2 versions. Both versions are valuables. Most beanies have rhyming 4-line poems. Piccadilly's only says 5 words. Okay, so, first thing, this is not a Beanie Baby. It just isn't. This is an Attic Treasure, which is a totally different thing. It's made by the same company, but it's not part of the same collection. Where is it? Yeah. So, I don't even know where to begin with this one. This is a very common thing to see on these lists for some reason, where just, it'll be like the top 20 rarest beanies, and 19 of them will be beanies, and then you'll just have Piccadilly. There's, a lot of different Attic Treasures. We have a lot of these. Why does this one particular one always get listed as a beanie? I have no idea. I think it's because somebody did it once, and then everybody just copied that one. Ignoring that, I should point out, it looks like this is a Gen 3 tag, and I've been saying this whole video, like, okay, stuff with Gen 3 worth a lot. This is not a Gen 3 tag. This is a Gen 7 tag, because Attic Treasure tags are different. And you're like, alright, so what's the difference between a 3 and a 7? They look the same. The difference is the font. Gen 7 uses Comic Sans. And it has these, I guess, like right here, it has just like a little very brief saying on it. These use the older font, and they have the 2 from With Love. So yeah, Piccadilly is a Gen 7 Attic Treasure. It is extremely common, and I have no idea why it keeps showing up on these lists. There's nothing special about it. The only reason I know anything about this one is because it keeps showing up in these lists. So I also know that, like it says, it came in 2 different variations. There's also ones that say Azalea on the hang tag. Azalea is a rabbit. Some of them were just made with the wrong tag for whatever reason. Those aren't worth anything either because they're extremely common. So yeah, it doesn't need to be here. Now we have Wrinkles. This is, like, I swear, this second half of this list had to have just been written by a different person, because now we're getting into a part where it's like, trying to make jokes about stuff. Earlier it's justifying, like, why they're rare. This one's just like, hey, it's probably just as expensive. Like, no. Here's when Wrinkles came out. Start of Gen 4 up until there. There was never a point where this had a rare tag. Now, there are Gen 4s that can be worth stuff, like, can be worth money. This one, not one of them. There is not a single noteworthy thing about this beanie. Also, that's a Gen 5 tag, so this is a later release anyway. Here we have Twigs, and the teeny beanie version. First released in January 96, sold for nearly 2.5 years. So, you admitted it. What makes that one rare? It was out for a long time. Like, okay. It could have had the Gen 3 tag. That would make it worth like 30 or 40 bucks, but this one doesn't. The teeny beanie, that's a different thing. That doesn't count. So it's like, even in the best case scenario, if it was like a mint condition Gen 3 hang tag, Korean, I don't know if this one can also be German. It might be. Like, I could maybe see it reaching 100, but it's not likely. It does not need to be on this list. We have Hippity, and what a good picture it is. Limited edition bunny Beanie Babies. Yeah, limited edition. Wow, that was out for such a short time, I can hardly believe it, during the common generations. There's nothing special about Hippity. Scoop. Same exact thing as Wrinkles. Came out start of Gen 4 hang tag. Lasted a little bit longer, actually. End of 98. Nothing special about Scoop. Has no rare variants. Now this one says, some Scoop versions had tons of errors, with the most valuable having as many as 8 mistakes. We're going to be seeing a lot of that later. Anybody who's watched my beanie videos before knows how much errors annoy me because they're fake. The amount of beanies where errors actually matter has got to be like 1%. It is never something you need to worry about. If I knew what errors it was talking about, I could talk about them specifically. Does this one have any info on eBay? Nope. Okay, then we'll move on until I find one that does have something to talk about. But yeah, errors are pretty much just, somebody has a common thing and they're like, well, I gotta make it stand out, so I'll point out these things about it and make it claim that they're all rare and hope that people believe it, and sadly, people do. Here we have Doodle. First release 97, clash with Chick-fil-A, changed its name to Strut. Yep, this one, all of this is correct. I have no issue with this, other than the value, because this thing's worth $10. So, just for the heck of it here, let's track out this thing's release window. Doodle lasted about that long, and Strut lasted this long. Doodle did have a short release window, but by the time that we're in 97, it's extremely uncommon to find any beanies at this point that had a low enough production to actually be worth anything, and this is not one of those cases. So yeah, when it first came out, it was worth a decent amount until people realized that there were a lot of them, and it's not that rare. If it had the Canadian tush tag and the name in the hang tag spelled in all caps, it would be worth more, about $40-50 maybe, but this one doesn't, so whatever. Spangle. Yeah, again, this text is fine. Came in white, blue, and pink for the face. That is accurate. Release on Spangle was in 1999. Came out in April, lasted till the end of the year. And it was kind of split up. Like, they had the red ones, the white ones, and the blue ones kind of released at different times. It doesn't really impact their value, though. The blue ones were hard to come by at first, but they're not anymore. All three versions are common. Weenie, once again, nothing to say about it. First beanie that could stand up on four legs. They were kind of hurting for trivia on this one, I think. I don't know if it is. It very well could be. Weenie's release window. Say it with me. Nothing really special. Lasted that long. Gen 3, same with Twigs, could be worth a bit, but anything after isn't. This is a Gen 4. It is not worth anything. Mel, yeah. Let's see. Don't care about the teeny beanie. Don't care about the Mel Gibson poem. Release window, like that. Not rare. I remember reading this one earlier, and this one just annoyed me. So let's see. Hippity the Snake was first released in 1997. Just barely. It was December 31st, 97. Let's not kid ourselves here. Between then and his retirement, several generations were produced, including this 5th generation version. So between December 31st, 1997 and when it retired, several generations were produced. You sure about that? You sure it's not only 5? And now you may say, well, look down here, it could be 6 or 7 for the tush tag. No, it can't. Gen 7's only on copyright 99s. It's always Gen 5 hang tag, Gen 6 tush tag. So, it says each has slightly different coloration, with this one featuring a light green belly and a marbled teal upper. Incorrect. They were all the exact same. Now, the upper part of the body is tie-dyed, so you can see a little bit of difference in those. Some of them might be a little more blue, some might be a little more green, darker, lighter, whatever. But yeah, no, it's the same beanie every time. It says first generation hissies tend to sell for the most. There's no such thing. So no, this one's just bad. Batty the Bat. Let's see. Released in summer, well, October, but okay. Sure, I guess. So here's Batty's release window. It was October of 97. Up until this point was the brown one, and then it changed color to a tie-dye one. Lasted 3 months. Neither of them are rare. Lips the fish. Oh god, okay. We might have to do a little digging on this one, so... Yeah, Lips was a summer 99 release. I think it was like about here. Got up to the end of the year for that, so... It's, you know, it's whatever. It's a Gen 5. Gen 5s are almost unanimously extremely common. So yeah, it says... the tag had 2 extra spaces. The Lips beanies with both errors are worth the most. I assume they're referring to the end of the poem. Most of the poems would be like... They would be like this, with an extra space before it. Like, almost every Gen 5 tag has that. And yet, like, everyone on eBay always says that that's an error. So it is... You know, it isn't, because they're all like that. I don't know. There's not much else to say about that one. Okay, so Clubby says, exclusively sold to those who join the official club. Buying a kit, cost about $15. This is a little misleading. Ty struggled to keep up with demand. I don't think that's true. Clubby's common. It never sells for very much. 10 different Clubby editions were produced. Those are all different beanies. It's not the same thing. They're called like Clubby 2, Clubby 3, etc. I also don't think there were 10 of them, but I don't know the later generations very well. I know there were at least 5. But yeah, first one, it's just not. The release window on this one barely even matters, but it was about there. This one was never sold in stores. You had to buy the kit and then send in an order form to get it, but they were definitely not in short supply. People got them just fine. If they came in the original bag like this, like if you kept it in that, the bag might add like $1 to its value. That's about all you can say there. Can there be a more average beanie than Stinky? Because I'm not sure if there can be. Like, again, they're doing just... They're saying the release dates, but without context, this doesn't mean anything. Like, if you don't know beanie stuff, you're just going to read this, and you're like, oh, okay, it was out for a few years. But, like, when you put it in context with everything else, there's just... Plenty of them were released after the common point, so those are fine. Like, I can only say that so many times. Jake the Mallard, this one shows up on a lot of these lists for some reason. Not every is considered rare. This version has mismatched dates. Are we sure about that one? Okay, I didn't want to have to do too much of a dive on this, but first let's just show the Jake release window for good measure. It was here to here. It's Gen 5, it's common. Yeah, let's take a look at... Let's just pull up a few of these. I'm going to just do best match. This is not going to do by highest or lowest. I'm going to pull up a few prices on these. So, let's see. We got 1997 for the birthday. And we've got 1998 for the tush tag date. As for punctuation errors, let's see. There's the space at the end of the poem. This one... I don't know, if you squint, there's probably something wrong with it, I'm sure. Somebody always finds something. It's like, oh, there's supposed to be a space in Oakbrook, or some stupid thing like that. Alright, anyway, let's go to another one. Let me find one that's actually listed for cheap. Okay, so I scrolled down, I tried to find some other ones that were listed for cheap. They're all listed for a super high amount, so let's just look at a couple more of these, and then I'll sort by sold. So, this is a different one, right? This is Iraqi Dinar store. It was Chicago J-Man, so different person. This one's got 1997 for the birthday, 98 for the copyright year. It's got the space at the end of the poem. It's got all this stuff. I'm not looking at anything specific on that one, but I'm just showing it off. So there's that. Now let's do sorted. Let's do showing sold only. Okay, this one's sold for $8.90. What do we got here? 97 birth date. I can't see the touch tag on this one, unfortunately, but it sure does have the space at the end of the poem. Let's try another. Okay, here's one that sold for 99 cents, and we've got 1997, space at the end of the poem, 98. Has the point come across yet? I was having more trouble than I was hoping finding examples to like prove my point here, but point is, it's not an error. So whenever you see one of these things that says mismatched dates, that is not a thing. So think of it this way. Jake the Duck has a birthday that is in 1997. Every one of them is going to have that. Jake the Duck has a copyright year of 1998. Every one of them is going to have that. So every one of them is mismatched. That is intentional because the years have nothing to do with each other. It's not an error. Now, on some beanies, they're going to have a birthday and a copyright year that are the same, and they're going to be the same on all of those. It's not really that complicated of a concept, and people really need to stop calling that an error because it just isn't. It's very easy to prove that they're all like that. So, finally moving on. Scorch the Dragon. This one... this is... What is this even linking to? Is it anything? They relisted it. What a shock. But yeah, Scorch, this is one of those beanies that is popular, if not rare. This one came out toward the end of 98, lasted until the end of 99. Had a good run during a common tag generation. There were plenty of these made, but, these will sell a little bit more than your average stuff, so you can see them go for about $10 sometimes. Definitely not 7,000. There is not a single thing in the world that could make this worth that much. This is not the name of the beanie. This is also not the name of the beanie. This is 1997 Teddy, is what it's called. And we don't have any information to go off of here, so I'll provide some. This was one of the first holiday exclusives. It came out during this release window, which is actually pretty small. And because of that, for a long time, I thought this one was kind of hard to come by, but shocker, it isn't. And the reason it isn't is because it was produced after the great collector boom. So, if you compare 97 Teddy to a random other Gen 4 beanie, it's going to be rarer than some of them, but it's still not hard to come by. They're worth about $5-10. 10 on the high side, it's usually closer to 5. So it's that's the thing though, is like this is a weird example to bring this one up on, but I find it annoying how there is plenty of information available on beanies that is very well documented, and all of these like lists and stuff just choose to ignore most of it. Like if you pull up a price guide from 1999, it's not going to be accurate to today's prices, but it'll give you a sense of what's worth a lot. Like you'll see this one's worth $10-20, this one's worth $900, and if we shift forward to today, things aren't so different now that like it's not the type of thing where it's just like you never know what's going to be worth something. You can never just say like this one that used to be considered common suddenly shot up. That doesn't happen. There are ones that go down. This one, there was a point where this one was maybe worth about $40-50 because it had a short release window. People who didn't get one in time had to buy it secondhand, and people were price gouging them. I can understand that. But now we're in an age where the only people who collect, there's a lot fewer people who collect now. The people who do it either just want to have one of everything, or they want to, resell. And there's so many of them on the market now that there's no way to get away with charging that much for them. People who list them for that much don't sell them. And so the point I'm trying to make is you can look at that older information, and if you take all of that as gospel, you do have to adjust a little bit. Like, for me, there's the ones that retired early on in 1997. Coral's one of them, Liberty's one of them. I still consider those to be pretty rare, but by today's standards, they don't usually sell that high. I've had to kind of come to terms with that. Same with this one. I used to think it's rare. It really isn't. And it's just weird how, like, the narrative on the internet now, with all of these articles just picking completely random stuff like Jake and saying that it's rare and everybody just accepts this. Like, there is plenty of documentation that will show you for a fact that it isn't. You can see hundreds of them for sale on eBay, and yet people will still go on there and be like, you know, there's 400 of these already selling, but I'm sure mine will get attention. It just doesn't make any sense. So, went on a bit of a tangent there, but it had to happen eventually. And here's another good point for a tangent. Oh boy. So, McDonald's Britannia Teeny Baby, or, yeah, Teeny Beanie. It doesn't actually say that, but that's what it is. So all of this information here is correct, but it is irrelevant to the image. So, yeah, Britannia came out, started 98, retired sometime mid-99. I actually don't know the date, but I'll just put it there. There was a very short-lived version that was released only in Indonesia that had a patch flag. That one is worth more, but not as much as you might think. It sells for, you know, maybe about 25, 30 bucks. You can see it go higher sometimes, but it's not really that hard to find, honestly. But that's irrelevant because this is the Teeny Beanie. This was a charity item, sold at McDonald's for like $5. Actually, I think it was like $2.50. It was really cheap. They made millions of these. They are dirt common. And this is one of the set of 4, with the other ones being Glory, Aaron, and what is the other one? Maple. All 4 of them are equally common. You'll find some sources that are like, they only made 1,000 of this one. That's completely made up. You'll find plenty of other sources saying open up the back of the box, and if the tush tag has a copyright year of 1993, that's an error, and that one's extremely rare. That is 100% made up, because they all say 1993, and opening the box is going to do nothing for you. It's extremely irritating. I don't know why these rumors stick and why people continue to believe them when nobody has ever successfully sold them for that much money. Like, really? This much? You really think this thing, this cheap McDonald's toy that was produced in the millions, is worth this much? Who is believing this? Snort the Bull. Another one that always shows up on these lists. And here's another thing that it baffles me every time I see this. So, first release January 1st, 97. Replacement of a bull named Tabasco. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Snort has different colored hooves. Tabasco does not. All that is correct. So, here is Tabasco's release window. Like that. Here is Snort's release window. So, you know, Tabasco has the capability of being rare if it's a Gen 3. And even the Gen 4 version, you know, it's one of the earlier ones. It's not as dirt common as a lot of the other Gen 4s. It can sell for $10, more than like the 3 that most of them do. Snort, on the other hand, was released later, and there's plenty more of them. Why do people say Snort is the rare one again? I don't get that. Like, we had that same thing earlier with Doodle and Strut, where they said Doodle's the rare one because it changed name. Like, that's what happened here. Why are we saying the later one is worth more? I don't get it. And to be thorough, I will also mention, there is a version of Snort that released around this point, Canadian only, where the hang tag says Snort as the name, but then the poem says, although Tabasco is not so tall, blah, 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 blah. That one is an error, and it's an error that's actually relatively rare and is unique to the beanie and isn't something stupid like a space at the end of the poem. So that one is worth a bit. It sells for, you know, about 30-40 bucks. But that's about all we can say about Snort. There is really nothing else notable about it. Ringo, every bit as average as Stinky. Mint condition Ringos are extremely valuable. No, they are not. Just for the usual showing, here is how long that one was on the market. I feel like we've seen this range quite a few times. Claude the Crab, another mainstay of these lists. The most valuable, the first edition versions, the ones with errors, the 7 parts on the rest. Tag on the bottom has 2 different errors. No. No, it doesn't. Like, what do you mean extra space in the middle? I don't even know what that's referring to. If we could see an example, that would be nice. And guess what? It's not on eBay. What a shock. Also, it wasn't produced in 96. That's just wrong. So, Claude was released around here. And it ran until the end of 1999. Or, sorry, end of 98. There's nothing special about this one. It shares the same trait as the other ones released in May of 97, where the first ones have the name in all caps. This one was also available in the US, though, as opposed to most of the others were only in Canada. The all caps Claude is like 10 bucks, maybe 15. All the other ones are like 5. This one is super common, and I have no clue why people think it's rare. Oh, here we have a good one. All right, Curly with errors, and we've got so many to go through. As mentioned before, beanies with errors can be much more valuable than ones with perfectly printed tags. False. Curly has appeared with Peace tush tags, Teddy tush tags. Before we even finish that sentence, I don't doubt this, but that doesn't mean anything. Any beanie can basically have any other beanie's tag attached as just a random chance. It is not extremely common, but it's also far from unheard of. The rule of thumb is if you find one like that, the most you can usually ask for it is about 1.5 times the usual value of the beanie. And it's kind of hard to find buyers for them because they're just not very interesting things. Like, there's too many of them out there. There's too many potential combinations, and it's just, unless you like want to get, like, let's say a Curly with every possible other name on it, then like maybe, but people don't really do that. So yeah, this one had 15 different errors. So let's see these errors that it's talking about. Well, first, before we do that, let's look at Curly's release window. Because Curly's another one, even if we ignore the whole error thing, people say this one's worth a lot. Here's Curly's release window. It's looking about as common as it can be. Never had a tag earlier than a Gen 4. Yeah, you know, it's definitely available. All right, so let's see. 2i in original. You can see that in the image if you look close enough. That is correct. That is an error that exists. It is a well-known thing, and it happened around here. Early Gen 5 tags would do that. It'll have 2 i's in original, and the back of it will also have Sufis instead of surface, missing the R. It always has both of them. Sometimes there will be a sticker covering the one on the back, but it's always both together. It's not rare. Anything, and it like, I don't want to say absolutely every Gen 5 thing is common, but the vast, vast majority are, and this one is no exception. Like, the error tags are still produced in the hundreds of thousands. So, Ferrum Hant's tie address, that is definitely not an error. I don't know what part of that claims that it is not supposed to be that way, but for the record, that address was used up until the start of 1999, so definitely not rare. No UK after PO15 5TX. We kind of saw that with the Jake tags. It's just in the addresses. You know, it's supposed to have that. The first ones didn't. It lasted about as long as the original Sufis stuff as far as I'm aware. It's nothing special. Semicolon instead of colon in birthday, yes. Same thing with these tags, they were just all printed that way. And incorrect spelling. It's not saying what that spelling is, so I can't comment on that, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. 1993 on tush tag, yeah, because it's Curly, and Curly has a 93 copyright. They're all like that. No R in surface, we already covered that. No markings inside tush tag. That is referring to this. There's a red stamp that can appear inside the tush tags, released after a certain point for the ones that were released in China. Because we're in this time frame and this came later, it is perfectly normal for it to not have that, so that's fine. People will claim that this stamp like indicates that it's mass-produced and ones that don't have it are more rare. That's not true. So we have second sentence of poem, lowercase y. I know what that's referring to. Like the first line of the poems, I can probably find one here. Yeah. Yeah, the poem, a lot of them will have like a weird lowercase y in them. Does this one? Yeah, right there, the word you. Okay, this one's not exactly the same tag as the one before because it has the original spelled correctly. Let's actually find one that is exactly the same if we can. Do we have any good photos of this? Yeah, there we go. So inside of the tag here, date of birth, semicolon, April 12, 1996. So this one definitely doesn't have a spelling error. Whether the other one did, I can't say. But anyway, we have the lowercase u, or the lowercase y in the word u, rather. It's, you know, they were printed that way for a long time. You can also see that on the Gen 4 tags. It's, can you consider it an error? Sure, but it's just, it's common for them to have that, so whatever. Extra space between two and this, you can see that also on the third line of the poem. It's kind of odd. They hit space twice instead of once. We could call that an error, but it's common because a lot of them have it. Brown nose, it's like that on 100% of them. No markings inside. Tush, you already listed that. You put the same thing twice. So, I don't know if this is 15. I didn't count them. But here's the other thing with errors, is it's not a contest to see how many you can find. If a beanie has an error that makes it rare, like the snort with the Tabasco poem, it's usually like one thing it can have. There are very rare cases where you can have like maple with an upside down flag, which is a production error, and the pride tush tag, which is like a weird oddity that it can have. It, like, you can find one that has both of those, and that in itself isn't, like, because both of those are rare on their own combined, then yeah, you're looking at like basically a one-of-a-kind item. You can see why that would sell for more. But when we're having to go through this and basically spell check and like, you know, scribble over like, oh, this should be a semi, this should be a colon, why is this space here? Like, when you're doing that, you're basically implying that there's somebody who is like at a keyboard typing this out for one tag, and then they erase it, and then they type it out again for another tag. And it's like, do you get what I'm, you get where I'm going here with this? Because it's like, you know, when they print it, they're going to print hundreds or thousands of these. Like, if the error is on one of them, it's going to be on all of them in that batch. There's going to be a ton of them. So, if you can find one tag that has, like, 9 errors, you're going to find a million other ones that also have those same 9. It's just, it's not special. And, like, I can't express enough just what a weird, like, failing in logic that is for people to think that this is anything that would increase value. It just does not make any sense. Let's try and get through this list here. Mystic with errors. 4 different variations. Yeah, okay. Correct. This is the third version of Mystic. Mystic had a very long run. It was from about here. Oops. From about here to here, I believe. This version specifically was in this release window, so it is very common. The Mystic that is worth actually any notable amount of money lasted about this long, and so it follows the rules of any old beanies where older generation is more. Gen 3 is still worth a decent amount, just not as much as, you know, a 1 or a 2. But that's not this one. It doesn't matter. This one's common. We don't know what the alleged errors are on this one, so we can't comment on them. Iggy. Tie-dyed iguana with felt spine. 4 different versions of Iggy. That's debatable, but okay. It says right here, the tags were switched so often that any incorrect tags aren't considered to add rarity. So what made it worth $10,000? No idea. Iggy was a bit of a mess. Iggy and Rainbow both came out during this range. They each had the wrong color originally. It was... Iggy was supposed to be blue, but came with this color. Rainbow was supposed to be this color, but came as blue. That was corrected around here. And there was also like this particular version of Iggy with the tongue added came out around here. So the version we're talking about right now is like this middle square. This is the rarest version of it, but it's still not worth much. Like at this point, it basically just comes down to the colors if people like it. Like you can see them sell maybe $10-$20, but most of the time they're going to be like $5. Hippity and Hoppity and Floppity, nope. Yeah, we've seen the third one of the trio earlier, Hippity. Again, this was their release window. They were common. There is nothing about them worth $10,000. Here's Hope. The big one is the Buddy version of it. Yeah, just, you know, here's Hope's release window. It was just all of 1999. There were millions of them made. Here we have some nice ads popping up. So Halo with a brown nose. Ooh, that's got to be special. Several versions of Halo released. Incorrect. There was only one. This one's particularly rare. Most had black noses. This one, however, has a brown nose. I found an error. Does that make the article worth a lot? I don't think that's actually the birthday. That's just the release date. I don't think that's the birthday, but whatever. So yeah, here's again, just for reference, here's Halo's release window. It's Gen 5. What else can you say? Here's one of my favorite things to show. So let's go to the beginning of like the eBay search and do Halo Beanie Baby. Brown nose, in quotes. We've got 558 results. Now let's see how many of them have a black nose. None. Because it doesn't exist. Every one of them ever made has a brown nose, and yet people feel like they need to mention it. How many have Halo Beanie Baby with no mention? We've got 558 with a brown nose out of 1,300 just non-specified, and none black. I've proved my point. It's just one of those things. Halo, Curly, Valentino, Liberty, 1997 Teddy, probably some other ones I'm forgetting. Brown nose, 100% of the time. There has never been a single case where the color is, like, supposed to be something else and you have a rare version. That is not a thing that happens. I don't know why people insist that it is. Gobbles on number 2 for the astounding price of almost $15,000. Several errors can be found in this one. Are we sure? Does this one exist? Oh, well, relisted. Okay, let's see what it's got. We've got to find out. Errors include PVC pellets. What an astounding error that is. It's almost like, you know, every beanie was released with them up until February of '98. What an error. I can't believe they would make that mistake to use the wrong type of plastic. No stamp on the inside of tush tag. Super rare! Because, again, everything before this point, super rare. It's not like, you know, most of the things released in this window are common or anything. We're going to disregard that. Error on the last line of the poem, space between bulge and exclamation. Oh boy. That's worth 15 grand. Again, they relisted it. This didn't sell. Why are we acting like it sold? So anyway, Gobble's release window. There it is. It's common. No version of it was rare. And lastly, we have Patty, the quote-unquote magenta platypus. We'll explain that in a second. Patty, spelled wrong, introduced the sixth of the original 9. What, alphabetically? That's a weird way to put it. Several versions of release, including fuchsia, magenta, raspberry, maroon. Maroon is actually the collective term for raspberry and magenta, but I'll let that one slide. This version's extra rare because their tags are written in both English and French. Tush tag is missing tag stamp. Tag has several minor grammatical errors. Okay, so English and French means that it just has a Canadian tush tag. That's nothing special. Missing the stamp, we've already covered that. And the errors, it's not specifying what they are, so I have no way of commenting. Oh, wait, never mind. They relisted it. Let's take a look. Magenta rare. More investment quality. There's a Canadian tush tag. That sure is what it is. Is that it? Is that all you got? Oh my god. What do you mean very scarce? Every one of them released in Canada has this. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and but earlier you said that beanies released in, like, Germany are rare. It's like, okay, because this was exclusive to Gen 3, which is already a rare generation, and it's a minor, like, it's a small subset of Gen 3. Here we're talking about a Gen 4 that just happened to be released in Canada. That is not scarce. No stamp, no PVC pellets. Ultra rare, most valuable Thai Deutschland Nürnberg. God. Okay, yeah. Let's. I'm getting into really nitpicky territory here, but we have to make fun of these. I'm sorry, we have to. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about the color. We have Patty's release window. One of the first 2 beanies released, because yes, Patty and Brownie preceded the original 9, all the way up until May of '98. We have Deep Fuchsia, which lasted this long. Then we have Raspberry, which lasted about this long. Then we have Magenta, which lasted about this long. And then we have Fuchsia, which lasted the rest of it. This one is a Gen 4, so, you know, it has to be a Fuchsia because the other ones were exclusive to older generations. Even if we ignore the fact that the colors are kind of hard to tell apart sometimes, we're not even going to get into that here. So yeah, that's not a magenta one. This is the common color. So let's see. Ignoring this because this is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid. This is stupid. This one is just basically saying that the address is in the tag. There were a few different, like, they changed them a couple times. The one that, like, the original Gen, if we ignore the older tags, the Gen 4s, said Deutschland is the address up until around here, and then it switched to they said Nuremberg, Deutschland, so Germany. That was the address they had. It changed to Aurora, Canada, at this point. I believe it was somewhere around here at least. Point is, it was partway through Gen 4. It was we cannot pretend that it was an early thing. Whatever. This is wrong. No month listed. I mean, it says 1/6/93. I'm pretty sure 1 is the month there, but I get what it's saying. It's saying that it's not spelled out because, it's a Gen 4 tag and that's what they're supposed to be like. Missing comma after Oakbrook on all tags. On golly gee, gotta call the grammar police on that one. Extra space between explain and her. Extra space between her and extra. Okay, so it's saying on the last line that would explain her extra large beak. Are you seeing extra large spaces on either side of her? Because I'm not. It looks normal to me. Even if it was, like, we've talked about this. This doesn't matter. Comma versus period after IL on tush tag. Okay, I don't doubt it. Where is it? Wait, hold on. What did it say? Comma versus period after IL on tush tag. It's supposed to be a comma, though. There's not supposed... Oh my god. No period after C in PVC, no period after A in USA. We're seriously splitting hairs here. I see what they're talking about, but, like, who cares about missing periods? Tush tag has Bregno PA 1965 KR, means part of the Korean market. No, it does not. It absolutely does not. Look up any Beanie Baby. I don't care what it is. I'm going to just pick one at random. Let's look at the tag. This one doesn't have a picture. Come on. Come on, we gotta find one. Come on, eBay, work with me. eBay, work with me. I need to find one. Look, Regno PI, or PA, 1965 KR. It must be Korean then. Literally every single tag, other than Gen 1 tags, says this. Every single one of them says this. This has nothing to do with the country it was made in. It has nothing to do with the country it was sold in. It is on every tag. People, please get this through your heads. It is a patent office number. It does not mean Korea. It is not special. If you take 2 seconds to look at your beanie here and look up other listings, and you claim that you have this super rare thing, you're going to see that all of them have it. Stop trying to scam people. Well, that's the end of the list. I got a lot more annoyed than I thought I would at the end there. But yeah, it's just, there's a lot of little details in this hobby. I cannot expect everybody to know it going in. It can be hard to find some of this information. I had to do a lot of digging myself. You have to look through a lot of old info. Magazines help. Old archived websites from the 90s help. But the info exists. There is no reason for there to be such blatant misinformation paraded everywhere as fact that is leading people to believe, like again, let's look at this list. Let's imagine that somebody comes across a collection from a family member. They know nothing about beanies at all. Completely blank slate. So we're looking through this list, and we're like, okay, I don't have this one. I've got a princess. I've got a Goldie. We don't know what first generation means, but we've got that one. We're going through this, and like, okay, I don't have Billionaire. I don't have Steg. All this stuff, these first 30, we don't have them. And then all of a sudden, We reached the halfway point. I've got Twigs and Hippity and Scoop and Doodle and Spangle, like, because all of these are dirt common. Like, wow, I have the top 30 rarest of all time. My grandma must have been one of the most crazy collectors ever. This must be worth millions. Like, no. That doesn't work that way. Like, why would you... Like, why is this list so bad? I can't get over that. It started out so good. And then it just completely nose-bombed. Like, I can't even string words together anymore. I need to be done. So, yeah, that was my beanie lesson for the day. I am so sorry that this went on for so long, but, you know, it just irritates me. It's out of all the things that are going on in the world, getting upset over beanie misinformation shouldn't be a big deal. It's really not hurting people as much as it could be. But, like, come on. Like, if you don't know anything about the hobby and you're looking to sell some stuff and you look on eBay and you look at these lists, you're gonna believe the garbage because it's all that anybody ever says. And the only reason anybody ever says it is because they see other people saying it. And they said it because they saw other people saying it, all the way back until you get to the person who started it, who is a scammer, who is like, again, as I said before, they're just, I have this common thing that I want to try to sell for way more than it's worth, so I'm going to point out these details and say they're rare and hope nobody checks. Well, guess what? I guess they won, because people don't check. We have this belief that the KR means it's rare and the no stamp means it's rare, and we have to look for the extra spaces and the missing periods and all this stuff that has never once mattered ever. It's really annoying. So, until next time, do some research if you're going to get into beanies. Like, please don't trust eBay. Don't trust these lists. They're really bad.